Hi, welcome. Today we're going to be working through the reindeer snowflake, and I'm also going to be answering a few questions. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and this is the box folding template. I call it that just because it's a box. You have to cut it out on all four sides to get the square. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. And we're going to go ahead and start with the folding. And we're going to be matching up this corner with this corner, but first we're going to put the pattern side down so we don't cover it up as we're folding. Let's see, it got off just a teeny little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and refold that. Now we're going to go ahead and match the two small points to fold along line 2. Then we're going to go ahead and put the pattern side down again. And we're going to use our fingernail just down here. Hopefully you can see our fingernail down here to make a little crease just to help us as we're folding up this side, to help us get a good point. And fold along line 3. And then we're going to unfold 3. We're going to bring up this other side that has the two folds. We're going to make sure we're holding those folds together, and again we're using our fingernail down here to help us get a good point. And we're going to fold along line 4. And I do tug on these ears a little bit to help keep it straight. And then we're going to refold 3, and as we're refolding 3, we're making it go over 4 more layers of paper, so we're going to need to recrease. So right now I've got a total of 12 layers of paper. I'm just going to roll this just a little bit here. Make sure I got a nice point. Crease there. Okay. And now I'm just going to show you something real fast. I know normally I would cut it out, but today I'm going to be talking about, a lot of people are like, why do we have to fold it? It's so hard to fold. Why can't you just fold it the easy way? So I'm just going to demonstrate over here the way that a lot of people want to fold it. And of course, I'm not going to force you to fold it my way. Crafting is not, there's no crafting police. They're not going to come to your house and make you do it a certain way. And this is art. You can express yourself in your own way. So you can choose which way you want to fold. I'm just going to show you today the other option. And the reason why I chose the reindeer is because this option is going to end up giving us 8 reindeer instead of 6 reindeer. And in the classic poem, there are 8 tiny reindeer. So that's why I chose the reindeer to answer this question. So the way that a lot of people want to fold it is, of course, start with a square of paper, fold it in half once, fold it in half again, fold it in half again, so right now we are up to 8 layers, right? And then fold the point in half again. So now we actually have a total of 16 layers of paper. Make sure I'm getting a good fold and a good point here. The points are still important, regardless of how you're folding. This is the way a lot of people like to fold. It does give you an 8-pointed snowflake again instead of a 6-pointed. And I choose to do the 6-pointed because in nature, the ice crystals, which are water crystals, form hexagonal bonds, and so they're normally in 6 points, or there's 12 points in the normal snowflakes. So it's up to you. And then I'm just going to show you, and I'm going to put this one on top because obviously in the 360 degrees here, we've divided this one by 16, so this is a smaller angle than the one that we divided by 12. This one is 30-degree angle, and this one I believe is 22.5-degree angle. So you can see you are going to run into a little bit of problem if you choose to fold this way, because the patterns are bigger than this. But I will show you in just a minute. We'll just slide the pattern up. You'll just have to start with a bigger piece of paper. In this case, I actually started with a 10-inch square instead of an 8.5-inch square. And you just have to adjust a little bit. You know, just have to line up one side and then adjust the other side to fit. Anyway, we'll get there. I'll show you in just a second. But I'm going to go ahead and cut out the one on the box folding template. And as usual, I'm just going to go ahead and start by using a paper punch. I'm going to actually come in from the other side where it's a little closer here. Use a paper punch for the eye. And then usually I work from the outside in, but since the antlers are the most detailed part of this one, I'm actually going to go ahead and cut that part out first. So we're just going to go ahead. And this is also a fun one, actually, even if you are doing it with the 6 points for the 6 reindeer. It's a good one to use a bigger square of paper to start with, because then you have lots of fun with the 2-in-1. I'm not going to worry about it on this one because I'm not going to have enough space. See here, we'll just run off this edge. But this could be the detail, the inside detail of a second snowflake if you made it on a bigger piece of paper. But that's just something for you to experiment with later, if you so choose. So sometimes it's fun to start with a bigger piece of paper. And of course, again, newspaper is a good weight to use. I'm just going to go ahead and cut this off. I'm having a hard time seeing because I'm on camera. Sometimes the paper gets in the way. And if I do work on a bigger piece of paper, a lot of times I will actually just fold back the piece. Instead of cutting that off, I would have just folded it back gently. I wouldn't have done a hard crease on it. Just kind of folded it back gently. This is a bad one to show you on. I would have just kind of folded it up like this, gently out of the way, and then continued on down, just so that I could still see if I needed to. But I'm just going to go ahead and continue there. Try to show you the folding it out of the way. I'm trying to cover lots of tips in one. So sometimes I exaggerate, but just things that you can apply to other ones. So of course it's not necessarily needed here, but I could go ahead and fold this kind of back like this so that I have more access here. It actually made it harder for me to see right now, just the way the camera angle is. Okay, here we go. Hoping you're able to see really well and it's all in focus. Okay. Good thing about the box folding template is you're not worried about the pattern on top shifting on you. So of course when you're holding it on with the paper clips, the pattern sometimes will shift. Especially if it's a different, if you're doing the wrapping paper and you have just regular paper on top, it seems to slide a little bit more sometimes. Anyway, so, and I might not actually need that paper clip, but it doesn't hurt anything. I'm just going to go ahead and cut out this center. And I do like to keep this center as one piece just because it's a fun shape. Actually going to move this. Sorry, the paper clips got caught on the eye and it's actually preventing me from turning my scissors here. So Go ahead and take that off. If the tool is helpful, use it. If it's in your way, then you don't need to have it. Okay, we'll go ahead and open the center first. Remember, the 20-pound copy paper is the heaviest paper I suggest because you do start to lose a little bit of detail in the center just due to the thickness of, 12 layers of paper. So you will notice as I unfold here that the outer folded portion is going to be a little bit wider than the inner folded portions are. And the thinner your paper is, the less noticeable that will be. You can see here which one was the pattern. Okay, we'll go ahead and open our reindeer here so you can see how it turned out. So there he is. You can always put a book or something over him. Sometimes I have it's not actually glass, it's a piece of plastic that came out of a picture frame, but it looks like glass that I can set over top of these to make sure that they are flat, and then I can put books on top to make sure that they flatten out. Or you can just lay books on top. If you want them flat, or a lot of times at Christmas time we just go ahead and use some water soluble glue and just put like a dot on each one, just a little bit, because you want to be able to take it off the window easily again, and then put him up on the window. Of course, once he's up there, he's not going to come down as one piece, so be aware of that. If you want to keep him forever, don't put him up on the window, at least not in that way. Maybe inside a scrapbook page or something. Okay, so here we go. This is how we're going to, I provide the patterns here on a 30-degree triangle, right? This triangle has a 30-degree angle here at the center. So here we are, and we're trying to put it on this triangle that has a 22.5 angle, and it doesn't work if I put it all the way down here, so I have to adjust. Not a big deal to adjust with this one because we only have to worry about the ear. So we just decide how we want the ear to hook over. And just line up this other side. Now if we did it the other way, it would cause us a lot of problems. You see how that would distort the face and everything, so that's why we're lining it up this way. But in this case, we do want our 8 reindeer instead of 6 reindeer, just to go with the poem. And then you can, it would be fun to design your Rudolph to go with it somehow. That would be a fun thing. Maybe you could do it as a placemat and have Rudolph standing in the middle or something. Just something fun that you could come up with to go with. If that's one of your favorite movies, which is one of our favorite movies at Christmas time, is Rudolph. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It's a classic. Okay. We're going to go ahead, punch out the eye. Okay. And again, this is 16 layers, but it is a thinner paper. So I always suggest that you do see what your paper punch can handle, and that usually will also help you know how much you can handle with your scissors. So we're going to go ahead and, just like before, we're going to do the antlers first. Come in from this other side, so I'm going to move my paper clip. I don't think I can get, well, maybe we'll try to keep it as one at top. We do have a little bit of room. It was a teeny bit more than 10 squares of wrapping paper because it was like 10 1/4 squares. There was a little bit of extra space on the wrapping paper. I just choose to cut along a line. It makes it a lot easier for me. Okay, And just like that, I'm just going to kind of fold this back out of the way a little bit. Not a big deal. If you don't want to fuss with it, you could always just cut that off. And then again, here we go, just folding it out of the way. Paper clip out of the way of the scissors. There we go. It was interfering a little bit with the handle there. Okay. And here we go. And again, don't worry too much about how this outer part got folded up if you're trying to keep it, because we can always flatten out the paper. You can always flatten it out before you decide to make additional cuts on it. You do have to be mindful, I'm going to point this out, that it's going off the edge at the top too over here. So be mindful of that if you have details going off the edge, or you know, if part of it went here, it might connect again. Just things that you need to be mindful of. I'm going to move this guy down here. Just hoping that he will hang on and support here. Okay. Like this one right here. If you were trying to save the top, you could accidentally go off the edge fairly easily right there. It's not too far over. You can see on the eye that the pattern has slid just a little bit over. Not a huge deal. And then it just slid back a little bit. Not a huge deal. Just something that does happen and you need to watch for. Okay, and then we are adjusting here on the ear on this side. All right. Just need to make sure that we did get that cut out without going over the edges if we're keeping that part. You don't have to be that fussy if you're not planning to keep that part. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move this guy all the way back to the edge again. You can see how he did slide a little bit. And just kind of move him back up, get this adjusted back in place. Stuff like that does happen. It's all right. I'm not going for absolute perfection. I know sometimes we let perfection paralyze us, so trying not to do that. Trying to enjoy it. This is supposed to be fun. Okay, here we go. And of course you can always adapt and change these patterns, okay? Don't be afraid to make it your own. Snowflakes are meant to be unique. We're going to go ahead, finish cutting up here, finish cutting off the ear, and then we'll see, since we adapted this one, it will be slightly different. Of course, the obvious thing is the center is quite a bit larger. We could add more details into the center if we want to, and we'll see if we want to do that or not. It actually looks kind of cool. The other obvious thing is we have 8 arms instead of 6 arms. So that is definitely a different thing. Just move things around here so you can see. But then we're going to go ahead and open this up for our 8 reindeer. So I will not be providing patterns for the 8. But if you want to fold it so that there is 8, and then you can adjust, like I showed you how to adjust the pattern, move it up a little bit so that it'll fit. You'll have to make a few little changes, that's something that you are welcome to do. It's just up to you. But that way we do end up with our 8 reindeer instead of the 6 reindeer. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take this one, this outside piece here, and we're just going to see what it looks like. I'm going to just cut this off right here without adding any details here at first, and we'll see what it looks like. Just without. Have a lot of room for detail, so I don't know that I'm going to go back and refold it. You could refold it if you wanted to have this detail in the center. It looks really good as a frame. I would probably do this, of course. My preference is with the 6 still, with the look of the snowflake, but I would use this as a frame. You could always fold it back up now and do additional details with it. That's just up to you. Hi, so I'm going to try to answer just one more question. So sometimes the printer does not print as a square, or you're trying to print one of the other templates that's not the box folding template and it's just shifted a little bit. So I'm actually going to show you what to do in case of that. So ignore the box part of the template right now, and we're just going to focus on the lines. So what you're going to do is actually just kind of focus, we're going to kind of focus on the lines and trying to make sure that we're focused on folding along line 1 and line 2. Just going to kind of make some little fold marks here to help me. Not doing a hard crease yet because I just want to make sure that I am going to get along line 1. Okay, and I see them teeny bit, so I'm just going to roll forward here a little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing for line 2. Again, I'm just ignoring the box right now. This is just if my printer printed all scawampus and I'm trying to get it to still work because I don't want to waste ink and paper. Or in this case, if I want the extra space above the box. Okay. So I just folded along lines 1 and 2, and then actually I just, when I creased, I made a mistake there. I creased and I rolled line 1 over for some reason. Oh, it's a little different. There we go. I'm going to crease that line too. All right. Make sure that we have those 2 in place. Line 1 and line 2 are the big ones to make sure we have in the right place. And then hopefully you can see on here, you should be able to see it when I turn it over in a minute, but we've now created a cut line here along this edge of the paper. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut right along that edge. Now it might not be as nice as this, depending on how your printer printed. I mean, if it printed a little off to one side or another side, you know, printers don't always cooperate, believe me. I have fought many a battle with them like 5 minutes before papers do. Anyway, so that's why I always try to print out the night before. Hint, hint. Doesn't always work. Anyway, so we're still going to put pattern side down, just like before, and use our fingernail down here. And we're going to fold along line 3, just like before. And then we're going to unfold 3, and we're going to pull up this other side. Obviously, it's way easier if you start with a square and you don't have to try to force it to go on line 1 or line 2, but sometimes you just have to make things work. line 4, it looked like my didn't quite have my ears together. Let's try that one more time here. Try to force that in there. And then we fold it over. Now we're making that fold 3 go over 4 more layers, so we have to recrease. You know, kind of notice, especially right here, there's usually a little bit more that it makes it go over. Okay, just make sure I have a good crease there. And you'll notice now we have this much extra space up above, more than we normally do on the box folding template. That's why I did it this way, just so I could show you what the 6 looks like when I cut out the antlers all as one piece instead of cutting out, just compared to the 8. Besides wanting to show you how to do a folding template if your printer's prints all, you know, wonky. So sometimes it happens. All right, so this time I am going to go ahead, just like before. I always start with the paper punch if I need to use it. There we go. I guess every once in a while, if it's a really complicated pattern, I'll wait till later if that's on a different piece, but almost always I start with the paper punch. Now I'm just going to be focused here on cutting out around the antlers, and it is way easier on the box folding template rather than holding on to the paper on top, but that's good for you when you're practicing as a beginner. But remember, this time I'm wanting to keep the rest of the snowflake up here on top, so I am not going to cut off the edge. I'm going to pause at that point and turn the paper, and if I need to, I'm going to fold it back out of my way so I can still see where I need to cut. And then I'm going to bring it back again. And when I fold it up out of the way, I'm just careful not to make a hard crease. I don't need it to be a permanent crease, but it is paper, so I can always flatten it back out. It's not a big deal. We're going to go ahead and come down in here. It's very good transition practice. We pause at the point, turn the paper, and then cut again. Pause at that point, and I'm going to fold it up again. Turn the paper, and I am cutting through 12 layers. This one will be 6 reindeer. Pause. There we go. Finish cutting that out, and then I will go ahead this time. I'm going to unfold it, but then I think I'm going to refold it again and add a few more details, just to see what we get. I think I might pause here for a second and go put it on the scanner. You know, sometimes you have a hard time seeing what these look like when they're not quite flat here. So we'll go ahead and do that, and I will be back in just a minute. Okay, I went ahead and did my best to scan both of them. The big blue snowflake didn't quite fit on the scanner. We're going to go ahead, I folded this one up, and we're going to add a few more details to it just to see what it looks like. And then I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of detail to the center of this one and maybe up here before I cut it off of the big one, just because it is a little piece, so it'll be way easier to add detail to it while it's still attached. So let's see. Usually kind of try to echo the other shapes. I think I'm going to want to have a paper clip to help me. It's shifting around just a little bit. There we go. It's like once it's opened, it wants to shift around even more. Okay, it's a little bit stuck there between layers. I try really hard not to ever pull because you don't want to rip. Make sure those layers were all there when I made that cut. See, that second layer is going to be a really small little cut there. So that wasn't quite all the way over. Shift that back over a little bit and redo that cut. So that's a little bit tricky, so sometimes it doesn't always work out for the best to redo it. All right, let's see. It is different working with the 20-pound copy paper for sure than it is the newspaper or the wrapping paper. You definitely want to be looking for some nice paper, something that won't hurt your hands while you're cutting. Newspaper is great for beginners. It's readily available. You can recycle it. If you make a mistake, you don't have to worry about the expense of it. You can usually find it for free, of course, if you're just taking it right out of the recycle bin and reusing it. Or sometimes you can actually get end rolls from a printing office for free, or oftentimes you'll have to pay a little bit for those, but sometimes they'll be giving them away for free because they oftentimes will just be recycling those as well. So it'll be just one more reuse before it's recycled, which is always great. Sometimes we forget the other R's, the reduce, reuse part of that, and we skip right to the recycle, but the other two R's are also important. So here we go. This one's actually turning out to be quite a fun frame. Wasn't sure how many details I would be able to pack into that little space, but it turned out pretty cute. Okay, then we're going to just go ahead and we'll open this one up. I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit to the center here. Few little details along this snowflake. It's always kind of fun to see how many in-ones you can get. So this one is going to actually be a 3-in-1 because I'm getting 3 snowflakes from one piece of paper. So that's kind of fun. You start with a large piece of paper, like a large piece of newspaper. Sometimes you're able to get more. It just kind of depends what you're wanting to do. My kids are the ones that started pulling the extra little pieces, the little leftovers out of the scrap pile, and before they were recycled, they used them for snowflakes. And I was like, oh wow, kids are getting some really interesting designs just using the little leftover bits and pieces. So ever since then, I've really been watching, what's left over in the middle. So let's see what is left over here, and if how that looks. Sometimes I just like to leave them solid. I mean, simple is still beautiful. No need to overcomplicate things, and sometimes we just enjoy adding more details. You can always refold and add more details, just like I did with this one. You'll definitely see her in the center since I put so many small details along the edge. This little one is going to kind of tattletale on me that, you know, I used thick paper. So again, 20-pound copy paper is the thickest paper that I generally use for snowflakes. I do like to experiment with whatever's in the recycle bin, or I've even used fabric before. I used an iron to fold the fabric and made a snowflake that way. So I have used thicker materials for snowflakes, but especially if you're a beginner, the 20-pound copy paper is the thickest paper I would use. Practice on thinner paper like newspaper, and then you can experiment with other papers, of course. Always experiment and see what you enjoy working with in art. Art and science actually go quite a bit more hand in hand than most people think. There's a lot of math lessons and science lessons and art that can be combined. Well, this one is really not wanting to open up with all those little details that I added, but keep being patient. That's another big tip, is open carefully. You don't want to, especially if you've done a really complicated snowflake that's taken you a long time to cut out. You don't want to rip it as you're unfolding. That would be very disappointing. And I can tell you from experience that is very disappointing. To have it snag on itself and rip after you've spent so much time on it. How funny, even with long fingernails today. Struggling quite a bit to separate that one. All right, let's move to the other one for a minute. Give that guy a break and see if maybe we can come back to him. That's another thing too. I don't know if you can see it for sure or not. Hopefully you can see it on this part right here. I'll try to put it. End up with kind of frayed edges with this 20-pound copy paper, just because that 12 layers of copy paper is a lot for the scissors to handle. So I think that's what's catching there, is that we've just got some frayed edges that are catching on themselves, catching each other. So we will do our best here to unfold it without ripping it so you can see. There we go. We did have a little bit of an edge cut. Okay. Just especially since we're trying to show you a 3-in-1, I don't want to rip it. Okay, we did pretty good, but you can see the little piece there that was catching on each other. Okay. There we go. I suppose I should open the main snowflake, the one we were actually going for here. Show you how it turned out. It is quite humid during the summer. The paper behaves quite a bit differently than during the winter also. Today, I mean, it is fall, but it's about 80% humidity, I believe, so that is quite a bit different. The paper will behave differently depending how humid it is in your area. So there we go. Thank you for watching.